It has been said that when an old person dies, a library is lost. Before the internet, Facebook, Twitter, before television or radio, our culture was transmitted for generation to generation by the elders. Culture is not inherited biologically, but learned socially. Culture does not exist in isolation. It is a product of society. Pat Answers Archive is, in my own small way, a way to hand down my library to those who will come after me. At the time that my maternal grandparents had moved out to the truck farm in East Hazelcrest, my mother didn't know how to drive and had never had a license. So anytime we went anywhere, it was by public transportation. Most of the time, we walked to where we were going, like to the grocery store, or we traveled by bus or streetcar in the city of Chicago. But the city buses didn't go to the faraway south suburban town of East Hazelcrest. To get there, we had to take what I, as a young child, considered the exotic and mysterious south suburban inner city bus line. Chicago buses, trolleys, and streetcars were painted in a green and cream-colored combination. That is, except for the ancient red streetcars that ran on Western Avenue, 69th Street, Ashland Avenue, and Halsted Street. They were painted red and white with wicker seats, the back of which could be adjusted so the seat faced either forward or backward. That was a really neat feature for a 4-year-old to consider. The trip to Grandma and Grandpa's house started by taking the Damon Avenue bus to 63rd Street and transferring to an eastbound bus that took us to Halsted Street, where the South Suburban Inner City Bus Terminal was located. We would then board the red and cream-colored Art Deco coach with the fuzzy brown velour seats for the long journey to the farm in East Hazelcrest. If it was available, I always wanted to sit in the front seat by the door, so I could watch the areas we were going through and try to figure out how much longer it would be before we got to Grandma and Grandpa's house. Off we went, southbound on Halsted Street, passing through different neighborhoods, seeing the interesting stores, movie theaters, used car dealers, and apartment buildings. I knew that we were about halfway there when we got all the way up to 123rd Street and Cedar Park Cemetery, with its granite monuments, deer herd, and the Cansor family plot that was located in the Masonic section. Further and further south we went, passing through Calumet Park, Riverdale, and Harvey. When we got to the southern end of Harvey at 154th Street, I knew that we were almost to our destination. We would leave the bus at 161st Street, and about a block before that, we stood up and I got to pull the cord that activated the buzzard, telling the driver we wanted to exit at the next corner. We will return to Pat's Answers Archives after this message. It started in a normally quiet, upscale suburb north of Chicago. A murder so grisly, so violent, it caused hard-nosed, experienced street cops to turn away in disgust. But that was just the beginning. There was more, so much more, hidden below the surface. Murder, mayhem, and arms dealing in a plot to eliminate an international leader. It takes you on a non-stop thrill ride from Skokie, Illinois to the Missouri Ozarks and finally culminating in Sin City. Book number 1 in the Tales from the Deep State series, A Wake of Vultures, by author Patrick C. Cansor Sr., available now for $16.95 plus $5 shipping. Order today at patsanswers.com/blog website by clicking on the Store tab. Order it today. Once we got off the bus, it was still about a 4-block walk to Latrobe Avenue, and then another 2-block walk to Grandma and Grandpa's driveway. The house was set back, on the front half-acre, and the only working entrance was the back door that led to the inside stairway up to the kitchen. The last 100 feet or so turned out to be the most difficult and sometimes scary. Off the driveway ran a sidewalk between the barn, chicken coop, and the back door of the farmhouse. About halfway to the door on the right side of the sidewalk was a large tree. and it was behind that large tree that the old and ill-tempered French goose would lie in ambush. That goose hated everyone and everything, with the exception of Grandma, and would storm out from behind that tree with her wings flapping and her neck extended like a snake, making hissing noises. That goose would attack every time without fail, and every time without fail my mother would try to protect me and tell me, "Run for the back door." But the goose would have none of it, and would sidestep my mother's attempt at blocking, hitting her a glancing blow with the leading edge of her wing, and pursue me like a venomous demon, hissing and squawking. I was a fat little kid, and couldn't run very quickly. Worse than that, as was the custom in those days, except in the dead of winter, I was dressed in short pants. Inevitably, before I could get to the safety of the back door, that goose would successfully attack me, snapping at my tender, fat upper thighs. Sometimes, if I were particularly slow or the goose was particularly lucky, I would receive 2 bites just below my butt, each of which would turn into an angry red welt that would throb with pain. Every week, the same scene. Get up to the tree, see the goose come out of hiding, running toward us, run as fast as my fat little legs could carry me, yet never beating the goose to the back door. Never. Not once, ever. And, once again, 1 or 2 painful and red welts in the back of my upper thigh. In pain and humiliated, I would stumble into Grandma's kitchen crying and bruised. Oh, how I hated that goose. Grandpa, on the other hand, thought it was funny, and got a good chuckle every time when the goose got me again. All through the summer, no matter if we traveled on the South Suburban Safeway bus or if it was on a Saturday, my father drove us out to the farm. Every time. I would get to the sidewalk. I would run as fast as my legs could carry me. And, inevitably, I would suffer the ignominy of being bested once again by this feathered, hissing monster. Every week, time after time, no matter how fast I ran, no matter how hard I tried, that goose got me. It was Labor Day weekend when Dad drove us up to the farm. He parked the car, and I timorously exited the back seat and once again ran as fast as I could, hoping to make the safety of the back door. Oh, my goodness, I made it! I got to the door and inside safely. I had avoided the attack of my dreaded nemesis, Grandma's goose. When it was time for dinner, Grandpa, Dad, and me sat around the big, heavy oak dining room table while Mom and Grandma served the meal. When all of the food was on the table and everyone was seated, the plates were passed and Grandpa began to fill them. It was then that he explained that the day before, he'd been walking from the chicken coop to the back door when the goose decided that he was to be her next victim. It did not end well for the goose. It has been said that revenge is a dish best eaten cold. I disagree with that. For me, revenge is a dish best eaten with stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, and roast goose.
That's all, folks.